Hello and welcome to the Recursion Cafe, where we play games from the discard pile. In today's game of Unmatched, we have Paul on the left and me on the right. This is our blind playthrough of Sun's origin. Apart from the identity cards on either side, we've not read any of the cards in either person's deck. We're just going to shuffle up, draw 5 cards, and go for it. I feel like it's quite rare that you get to play Unmatched without knowing both decks all the way through, so we're going to take you on this journey with us. Paul is playing Oda Nobunaga, a melee fighter with 13 health and 2 movement. He brings with him 2 honor guards, 1 red, 1 blue. They are also melee with 6 health. Oda is a master strategist, and he likes telling people what to do, so other friendly fighters in his zone get +1 to their played cards, both on offense and defense, although he does not benefit from this ability. Notably, this does not stack, so it is either a flat +1 or nothing. But he likes to stay with his friends and support them throughout the battle, strategizing in the background. And I am playing Tomoe Gozen, a solo ranged hero with 14 health, also 2 movement, and an ability called Attack of Opportunity, which sounds like it was inspired from Dungeons and Dragons. When an opposing hero, notably hero, leaves Tomoe Gozen's zone, deal 1 damage to that hero, and that is not limited to once per round or turn. So anytime an opposing hero leaves Tomoe's zone, they get a damage. So this is really cool, and her deck is built around kind of effects like the effects that trigger this ability. We are fighting on Azuchi Castle. The map that came inside this box is a really funky map with lots going on, and no inherent mechanics, but just some really cool stuff. So I will be first player in the bottom right corner, and Paul will be second. He'll be down at the bottom of this tower. I will say it's super exciting to get stuck in when you don't know what your opponent is capable of. It's like you met on the battlefield and you just have to be very wary and cautious. That being said, you normally know what you're capable of, but that's a separate issue. So I will attack at range the Honor Guard using the Warrior's Way into Spring the Trap. So immediately, Paul is able to swap his fighter with a friendly adjacent fighter who then becomes the defender. Then the opposing fighter takes a damage, so I will take a damage regardless. Warrior's Way is able to move the opposing fighter up to 3 spaces. If they're a hero, I have to actually appear next to them. Because Paul swapped in with his hero takes damage because his hero is forced to leave the zone. I rethink about where I want to put Oda, but eventually it is up there. But I take a damage back, so we both take some effect damage. And I have to teleport to the other side of the map next to Oda. So really cool dynamic card, and there's lots of funny things you can do with that. And on the other side, the defense is really strong as well. So at this point, we needed to reference the rules that came with this box, notably the flanking effect, and someone is flanked if the opposing fighter is connected to 2 or more friendly fighters under your control, not on your team, under your specific control. And here, Paul moves into flanking position, and I have no idea what he can do with this, so it's kind of a little bit worrying for me, but we'll see. So I'm flanked by Oda and one of his honor guards, and Paul will play a scheme, Demon King of the 6th Heaven. Deal 2 damage to each opposing flanked fighter. In a perfect world, I think you could get 6 damage out of that potentially, if all the stars align. But as it is, Tomoe takes 2 damage that she can't do anything about. And notably, it's a 3 boost, which I have to be aware of. There are 2 copies in the deck. So I'll respond by hitting Oda, who's next to me, and I'm hitting him with a worthy opponent. It is a 3 versatile. During combat, if the opposing fighter is a hero, it's a 5. But Oda responds with Pragmatism, which immediately cancels the effect. It's a bit like the Imposing Presence from Golden Bat. It would have been nice to do some damage through, but that is a strong defense, and there are 3 copies in the deck. So yeah, that's good to know. And I will maneuver and take a step back. I'll be on that kind of hallway up top. I've got about 5 or 6 cards in hand. And notably, it is very difficult or nigh on impossible for Paul to flank me unless he has some way of moving through me. And again, I have no idea if he can or not. So instead, Paul double maneuvers and just spreads out a little bit. It looks like Paul has 5 cards, and notably Oda is not in the same zone as his guards, which means I may have an opportunity. So I'll move up and take a shot at Oda from across the stairs there. And it's a worthy opponent again, it will be a 5, into Battle Maneuvers, which is a 2 versatile. After combat, he gets to draw a card and move each of his fighters up to 2 spaces, which I'm sure you can imagine is great for setting up flanking and just kind of catching your opponent off guard. Fortunately for me, he is at least 3 spaces away with almost every fighter that he has, so it's not an immediate maneuver into double flank attack. At least I hope not. Again, there could be cards that gain action to move. Because Oda moved out of my zone. Again, he gets shot by Tomoe as he tries to escape. He cannot run without consequence. So current health totals, both honor guards are at full. Oda is on 8 and I am at 11. It feels okay. I mean, both honor guards being at full is kind of worrying. They seem pretty beefy. Both honor guards will flank me and will attack. It will be a Sun and Moon into refuse to retreat. Immediately, I cannot leave. I wasn't planning to. Sun and Moon will ignore the value of my card because I am being flanked, so I take 2 damage. But then after combat, because the opposing fighter is next to me, they discard a card. So lots going on. He does get some damage through. Paul discards a Patience and Strategy, which is a healing card when flanked, but it's only a 1 versatile. There are 3 copies in the deck though, so it is good for me to know. 4 cards in hand, and so does Paul. It's good for me to know that there's healing in the deck, even if it is a little bit of a weak value. So my choice is, do I take on the other guards? I feel like moving away and not being flanked seems like a good idea. I will double maneuver to 6 cards and again put myself in Oda's zone to kind of pressure him to see if he wants to run or he wants to stay and fight. The attack of opportunity ability is thematic and fun because it makes your opponent feel like they should stand their ground instead of running. It's pretty solid. This map it can be pretty difficult to kind of maintain these kind of battle maneuvers, the flanking things. So Oda will strike with battle maneuvers, and I will defend with confront any demon or god, which is a 3 value versatile. After combat, I draw a card. If I lost the combat, I get to look at the opponent's hand and discard a card from it. So I was expecting a big swing from Oda, but it looks like it was a little bit of a feint just to set up and make sure the flank gets in and the red honor guard is there as backup, just in case. So Paul showing us he has 5 cards there. Excellent. The fact that Battle Maneuvers draws a card is really strong. Like the value's not great, but it has a lot of utility besides the combat value. So now I'm being flanked by Oda and an honor guard, but it is my turn. Do I swing first round, or do I want to keep running away and sniping? I will hit Oda, who is right next to me. This is his first action, as I'm demonstrating that. And we'll see, it is a worthy opponent, the third one, the last one. It's a 5 into a momentous shift, but Oda has not moved, so it's a 5 into a 3, and he will take 2 damage. That feels okay for me. I should probably save some of those for defense at some point, but I'm more worried about the guards, and all the cards keep telling me to hit the opposing hero. Speaking of, here is a card I must play face up. It is Witness My Last Battle, a 7 with a 4 boost. The attack can only target a fighter next to me, and it has to be played face up, and after combat it ends the turn. Lots of conditions, but Oda only has 6 health, and apparently no defense. So that 7 goes through and ends the game right there. That was pretty fortunate, I'll be honest. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I felt like if I could do that much damage to Oda, I'd push something through. So that's game. We kind of show each other some options that we had. Looks like I had some defense in hand, but we'll move straight on to game 2. And now we have a taste of what the other person can do, but we've not seen all the cards on our deck, so we'll shuffle up again. This time, Paul will go first. We have a flavour of what the other person can do and know what they're kind of about. So this might be a bit more measured or cautious, potentially. And now we know some of the options that we can play around. So Paul maneuvers, double maneuvers, I double maneuver, and I force Paul to engage me because he will have 7 cards in hand, and we have to discard 2. He'll boost with the scheme that does auto damage. It is a 3 boost. It means he can get into range, and I'm pretty happy about that. And he is not able to get into flanking position, which again is super solid. So he'll hit me, and it's a battle maneuvers, I can't say I'm surprised, into a refuse to retreat. So I can't move. After combat, Paul has to discard a card because defenders trigger first, and then he has to draw a card and move each of his fighters up to 2 spaces. So all in all, pretty decent exchange for us both. Paul will again discard the 1 value healing card, and I'm feeling okay about that. I'm being flanked at the moment and there's no way out, but as we might see in my hand, Tomoe has ways of kind of getting out of pins, or at least trying to anyway. It does look bad though. And I haven't seen all of the cards in Oda's deck, so I have no idea what's possible if there's kind of defense that triggers or flanking or anything. So I will attack Oda with Fearsome Strength. Immediately, she may swap with an adjacent fighter, but Pragmatism cancels the effects. If I had done, I could have swapped, got out of the pin, then dealt a damage to an adjacent fighter. Notably, it doesn't have to be that fighter, which is really cool. So Fierce of Strength, pretty awesome card. Unfortunately, it was cancelled, so I'll play Lord Kiso's Final Stand with some really pretty art. Move Tomoe up to 3 spaces. She may move through sidekicks, not heroes, unfortunately, just sidekicks. Then either recover 2 health or gain an action. Since I'm at full health, I will gain an action and just maneuver to get more cards in hand and to get more distance from the guards. 5 cards in hand for me. Really nice scheme there, and there are 3 of those, so that is the healing that is in Tomoe's deck. So Paul here counting the spaces, looks like he's got a few attack cards in hand, and there is some space. I'm up on a platform that has space to kind of quote unquote flank me, so he might be considering that. He's going to boost with a Sun and Moon, and his honor guards move into position, and Oda steps up behind and enters the tri-zone space, so he is backing up his honor guards. That makes a lot of sense. Playing this matchup on this map really does feel like a movie scene where it's really dynamic and one person's having to face off against an army that is currently reinforcing itself. Here's a scheme, choose 2 different effects, each friendly fighter recovers a health, draw 2 cards and gain an action. So really good tempo, especially if you can get into flanking positions and you're just gonna get more, you pick up more options. Really solid for adding pressure, and there's some utility, there's some options there. So here is a Lightning and Thunder into Deeds of Valor. Lightning and Thunder immediately cancels the effect on my defense card because I'm being flanked. So it's 5 to a 2, and I take 3 damage because the attack card is being boosted by Nobunaga. And then afterwards, Paul can move his fighter up to 2 spaces. So really well maneuvered by Paul, got into position, swung hard, and hit me through my Deeds of Valor, which is kind of like Spider-Man's web shooters, where I can't take more than 2 damage, but it's not an immediately effect, so it got cancelled. The health isn't quite correct, but we'll fix that in a little bit. So Lord Kiso's Final Stand, I move through some sidekicks, and I will recover 2 health, just to go back up to full or close to full, as we'll see in a bit, and I'll maneuver. And again, placing myself in that hallway where I'm unlikely to be flanked, because that red guard has to walk a long way around to get there. Currently we've skirmished about, but it looks like everyone's on full health. Definitely a lot more cautious than the first game. And looks like Paul will gradually move in. Here we remember the ID ability and the fact that it cancelled out my Deeds of Valor. So I do take 1 damage additional from that. No harm, no foul, we caught it in the end. But yeah, a lot of new cards going on, a lot of new effects, so we have a little trouble keeping up with them. It is very refreshing once again. So it's just draw cards, you have no idea what they are. You read them and you just, oh, that's wild. So I'll fire it with 5 against thousands into a Spring the Trap. So 5 against thousands, if Tomoe is next to the opposing fighter, I could discard a card to put it back into my hand. That is not the case. So it's 4 into a 2, and Paul decides to swap Oda with his Honor Guard, which means he left my zone and takes a damage, and then I shoot the Honor Guard, who takes 2 damage. It should only be 1 because Oda is still in that person's zone and buffs the defense, but there was so much going on that we forgot. So that Honor Guard takes 1 extra damage, which is unfortunate. We didn't manage to catch that just there. It looks like the Honor Guards will move in and attack. It's a Lightning and Thunder. It's a 4 value and no cancel into a skirmish. It's a 5 value because Oda is backing up his guard. So I take 1 damage and the skirmish does not trigger. And then Paul's fighter can move up to 2 spaces. As soon as I saw Tomoe's ability, I called it that there'll be a skirmish in the deck, and lo and behold, there it is. So I was pretty happy about that. So currently 12 health on Oda, 11 health for me, and some damage done to the Honor Guard, but both Honor Guards still pretty healthy. Here's another attack because I chose to stay in that zone because I thought it was a good idea. It wasn't. It's a 4 value Fire and Flames. If I was flanked, it would be 6, but I defend with Flash of Steel. If the opposing fighter is a hero, cancel the ability. It is not, so I do not cancel. I do a damage to someone adjacent to me, but it's, not quite what I was looking for. So 3 damage in total on that red guard. I last realized that corridor is not my friend, so I will maneuver away and have to rethink my tactics here. Being a solo ranged fighter with 2 movement can be pretty rough. However, I did spot this particular vantage point on the map. It means that Oda moved out of my zone because you can fire to the other side of the map from this zone, which is awesome. It's a really nice battlefield feature. So Paul will maneuver, he took the damage. Every friendly fighter will recover 1 health with Reinforce, and I believe he will draw 2 cards, or he might continue moving up to put pressure on me. I think he does gain the action and just maneuvers. which is a pretty solid idea, to be honest. And I think he has card advantage on me at the moment, so it makes sense. Paul boosts again with patience and strategy, stating that he has none. That's a fair self-assessment. But he is in flanking position, and it's on me to do something about it. Do I move in? Do I run? I think I have to be quite smart about this because, again, I've on a few cards, and a lot of my cards are kind of conditional on the opposing hero. So I'll boost with a 5 against thousands into this corridor, which I can't be flanked in, and I'll attack Oda once again. It's a piercing shot. I bet Robin's proud that made it in. So it's a piercing shot into battle maneuvers, no damage done either side. I draw 2 cards, Paul draws 1, and his fighters get to move up 2 spaces. So everyone's happy, really. I get to try and plug that card draw problem. Fortunately for me, I'm in this kind of stairway, and so it's very hard for Paul to get round into a flanking maneuver. It's not impossible, but it just makes it a bit more difficult. It looks like the blue guard is right up in my face and reinforced by Oda, and this is action 1, so it's a 5 value lightning and thunder, immediately cancelling. Sorry, it would be immediately cancelling my ability if I was flanked, but it does not. So I get to draw a card and then look at Paul's hand and discard a card. It's very exciting. It does mean I take 2 damage, but I get to look at the hand and discard a card, and I think that's just way more valuable. So we look at the hand. There is a Fire and Flames, Sun and Moon, Battle Maneuvers, and Patience and Strategy. So it's healing, utility and movement, and 2 cards that are great when I'm flanked. So I'm kind of relying on my ability to not get flanked, and I'll just take out some Battle Maneuvers. It also means I know the defense cards in his hand, and I know that there's not much there. It's a 2 and a 1. And the 1 can be a 3, but if I kill that person, then it doesn't quite feel like that. So Paul will then spend the second action to maneuver away and defend the orange zone up top. So I will play Lord Kiso's Final Stand. Now that I know almost everything that's in Paul's hand, I'll heal 2, and on the second action I will attack the red honor guard with Witness My Last Battle. It seems like a bit of overkill, but it means I can guarantee the kill, because so far I've not seen a defense card above 3. And killing an honor guard feels like the right call to make flanking just that little bit more difficult. It means that you can zone the map a lot less, which I'm happy about. So I'll send a 7 that way. I do find it quite amusing. It says Witness My Last Battle and there's 2 of them. But there we are. Paul boosts with Reinforce and again manages to flank, which is unfortunate for me. He will attack with an honor guard, I think. So the honor guard will have +1 value, so it's a 3 value Sun and Moon, and it does cancel ignore the value of my card, but Deeds of Valor states that I cannot take more than 2 combat damage this combat, so I still only take 2 instead of 3. It's a really nice interaction there. It's kind of funny how that works, but it's cool. And now that I know that a lot of his cards trigger from his honor guards who can be buffed by Oda, then that means I can kind of save the non-hero focus cards for them and just try and batter Oda personally. Like this, with a worthy opponent, it's a 5 value into a Patience and Strategy, 4 damage goes through, and then because I'm flanked, he gets to heal 2. Knowing that, I probably should have walked away and then attacked. That would have been a bit more valuable, but there we go. So now maneuver and go to the top of this ladder, where, it is very difficult for me to be flanked. It's quite hard to see from this angle, but there's only one path leading up to there. So even though it looks like I'm being flanked, I'm not, but we do forget that. So here's a Fire and Flame buffed by Oda, so it would have been 6 value, it's actually only 4 value, and I defend with a Flash of Steel, which only cancels if the opposing fighter is a hero. However, we thought that I was flanked, or I think we just kind of read it as I was flanked, so I take 4 damage instead of 2, which is less than ideal. It does mean the honor guard gets pinged for 1, but yeah, that hurt way more than it was supposed to. So I'll attack the honor guard, it looks like, because I can't reach Oda himself. Action 1, and it's a warrior's way into battle maneuvers. So a lot of movement going on. After combat, Paul gets to draw a card, move each of his fighters up to 2 spaces, and then I get to move that opposing fighter up to 3 spaces, but because it's not a hero, I do not have to jump to the space next to them. That being said, I really like Warrior's Way. It's a really cool card. There's a lot of dynamic stuff going on, and puts you in some very funky positions sometimes. So there's the movement from Paul from the battle maneuvers, and I will move the honor guard just far away as far as I can, and then move in the opposite direction. Paul will maneuver, he'll consider things, and he'll he'll boost with a momentous shift, and attack with another momentous shift, and I will cancel this, because if you see one, you kind of expect the other one. So 1 damage goes through to me, 1 damage goes through to him, because I cancel the shift, but it's 3 into a 2. Flash of Steel, really cool card, but it does feel bad when the opponent's sidekicks are their main beat stick, and it's just feels rough. So at this point, we both have only 2 cards left in hand, and I said, we do the funny thing, right? And of course, Paul, he always agrees to that. So let's do the funny thing. Action 1 will attack Oda. Fearsome Strength and Spring the Trap. A lot of swapping going on. So immediately, Paul gets to swap his fighter with an adjacent fighter, which he, I think, will do. That fighter becomes the defender, and then I take a damage. But immediately, I also get to swap places with an adjacent fighter, so we can just kind of dance the tango. And then I deal A damage to an adjacent fighter. And dealing with the Honor Guard specifically doesn't seem like the most worth it. At this point, I could just not swap and walk away after pinging a damage, but again, we're doing the funny thing. So the second action is me swinging with Witness my last battle, hoping that Paul doesn't have a defense card in hand. Unfortunately, he does. Otherwise, it would have been a perfect 0 health kill. But as it is, I do 4 damage, and that is all. So now we're stuck next to each other with no card in hand. He has 3 health, I have 1. And we'll just see how it goes. Does he draw an attack card? Unfortunately for me, it looks like he does, although he is surprised because it is a new card still. He thought he'd seen all of them, but there is one last card in the deck that neither of us have seen. And the funny play might be the last move that Tomoe makes this game. So here is Student of War from Oda Nobunaga. It is a flat 5, so it is true that he has some big cards. After combat, you draw a number of cards equal to the number of the amount of damage that you've dealt to the opposing fighter, which is 1 because I would die. So there it is, that's game. Oda manages to get his revenge and take down Tomoe. Notably, Paul only has 5 cards left in his deck. I have a healthy number, but it doesn't feel like either of these fighters are built to go to exhaustion anyway. So yeah, they're meant to tangle and skirmish and beat each other up and get stuck in, and that's great. So that is our blind playthrough of Sun's Origin. You will have seen every single card from both decks with these 2 playthroughs. I hope you enjoyed this kind of slightly more dynamic unboxing. Do let me know what you think in the comments below, as well as what you think of the characters. I personally, from my experience of them, think they're both really, really cool and very interesting. And I hope to see more of this kind of thing. The art is fantastic, the map is cool, and so far neither fighter feels like they have abusable mechanics, at least not initially. Neither seems built to go to super exhaustion, and no one feels like they have like too many cancels or anything, or values that are too high. So all in all, it feels like a really solid, fun set. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you Paul for supplying this copy of Sun's Origin. He is known as the Unmatched Painter on Instagram, and his details will be in the description below. If you want to support the channel further, you can check out the links in the description below as well. Thank you for watching. See you next time.